When Salvatore Rossi became Chicago's most beloved neighborhood barber, customers trusted him with their lives in his chair. But when his gambling debts and mob connections consumed him, he began using poisoned shaving cream and razor blades to murder clients who owed money to organized crime, turning haircuts into final appointments. Before we get to this wonderful story, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now, let's get back to the story. The crisp Chicago autumn wind rattled the windows of Rossi's traditional barbershop as Salvatore Rossi sharpened his straight razors and prepared his shaving station for what would become the most dangerous haircut of his 28-year career as the city's most trusted old-school barber and neighborhood institution. At 57 years old, Salvatore had established himself as Little Italy's premier traditional barber, specializing in classic men's grooming services that attracted wealthy businessmen, prominent politicians, and organized crime figures who valued his discretion about the conversations they conducted in his soundproof shop and his expertise with traditional barbering tools. Salvatore's barbershop occupied a corner storefront in Chicago's historic Little Italy district, featuring vintage barber chairs, antique shaving equipment, and hand-painted signs advertising traditional services that had remained unchanged for 3 generations of the Rossi family. His client roster included city council members who conducted unofficial business during weekly shaves, successful entrepreneurs who appreciated his old-world craftsmanship, and mysterious men who paid cash for private appointments and valued his complete silence about their visits. The interior of Salvatore's shop reflected his dedication to traditional barbering artistry and his understanding of his clients' need for privacy and discretion, featuring walls lined with vintage photographs of famous Chicago figures who had received his services, antique mirrors that had witnessed decades of confidential conversations, and custom-built cabinets containing hundreds of specialized razors, brushes, and grooming products that represented the finest barbering traditions from Italy and across Europe. But beneath Salvatore's reputation for old-world craftsmanship lay a dangerous combination of gambling addiction, organized crime debt, and systematic murder for hire that had transformed his barbershop into an execution chamber where targeted victims received their final shave. "Good afternoon, Mr. Rossi," said Vincent Torino, his 3 o'clock appointment and a 49-year-old loan shark whose extensive gambling operations had made him wealthy but had also created dangerous enemies within Chicago's organized crime hierarchy. Vincent had been receiving weekly shaves from Salvatore for over 5 years, trusting the barber not only with his personal grooming, but also with knowledge of his business activities and family vulnerabilities that made him a valuable target for rival crime families. "Good afternoon, Mr. Torino," Salvatore replied, with a respectful deference and professional skill that had made him legendary among Chicago's criminal underworld, who viewed him as both craftsman and confidant, capable of providing traditional services while maintaining absolute discretion about their business conversations and personal secrets. "I've prepared a special shaving blend for today's appointment that includes some rare oils imported directly from Sicily. This treatment will provide the closest and most comfortable shave you've ever experienced." Vincent had become Salvatore's most dangerous client, not because of his demanding grooming standards or his criminal activities, but because of his recent decision to cooperate with federal investigators who were building cases against several of Chicago's most powerful crime families, including the organization that controlled Salvatore's gambling debts and had been using his barbershop as a front for money laundering operations. What Vincent didn't know was that Salvatore had been systematically murdering clients for over 18 months, using his expertise with razors and toxic substances to eliminate targets designated by organized crime bosses who controlled his gambling debts and threatened his family's safety. Salvatore's transformation from respected neighborhood barber to calculating killer had begun 3 years earlier, when his compulsive gambling on horse racing and illegal sports betting had escalated beyond his ability to finance through his legitimate barbering income. His losses at underground poker games and sports betting operations had accumulated to over $400,000, with organized crime loan sharks demanding immediate payment and threatening violence against his family if he couldn't produce the money within 30 days. Faced with impossible financial demands and credible threats of violence against his wife and adult children, Salvatore had been recruited by organized crime associates who recognized his barbershop's value as a location for conducting private meetings and eliminating potential threats to their criminal operations. His first assignment had been to murder a federal informant who had been feeding information to law enforcement agencies, investigating organized crime activities in Chicago's Italian-American community. The success of his first murder for hire had convinced Salvatore that his barbering skills could be profitable when applied to systematic killing, and he had developed increasingly sophisticated methods for administering poison through shaving products, causing fatal cuts with contaminated razors, and staging accidents that eliminated targeted victims while providing perfect cover for organized crime elimination operations. Over the following 18 months, Salvatore had murdered 11 individuals using various methods that took advantage of his intimate access to their necks and faces during vulnerable grooming procedures. His victims had included Dr. Robert Chen, a forensic accountant who had been investigating money laundering operations and whose throat had been deliberately cut during a routine shave; Jennifer Martinez, a federal prosecutor whose face cream had been contaminated with ricin that had caused fatal skin absorption; and David Foster, a police detective whose aftershave had been replaced with concentrated cyanide solution that had caused rapid death through dermal contact. Each murder had been carefully planned to appear as either a tragic barbering accident or a sudden medical emergency that occurred during routine grooming services, with Salvatore positioning himself as the shocked barber who had done everything possible to save his clients' lives while eliminating potential threats to organized crime operations. "Sal, I need to discuss some serious concerns about several suspicious deaths that have occurred among your clients over the past 18 months, said Detective Anthony Moretti of the Chicago Police Department's Organized Crime Division, as he entered the barbershop carrying a warrant to inspect the premises and interview Salvatore about his connections to organized crime figures. Detective Moretti specialized in investigating organized crime activities and had developed expertise in recognizing patterns of professional killings disguised as accidents or natural deaths. Detective Moretti's investigation represented an existential threat to Salvatore's criminal operation, as his law enforcement expertise and access to organized crime intelligence could expose the systematic murder-for-hire activities and connect him to multiple suspicious deaths. "Of course, Detective Moretti," Salvatore replied, though he felt the familiar surge of anxiety and fear that accompanied any official scrutiny of his barbering activities by law enforcement officers who possessed the training and resources to detect connections between his shop and organized crime elimination operations. "I'm always concerned about the safety and well-being of my clients, and I want to cooperate with any investigation that might help explain these tragic circumstances." Detective Moretti consulted detailed case files and forensic analyses from multiple deaths that showed suspicious patterns of poisoning and deliberate injury that suggested the victims had been targeted for elimination rather than accidentally harmed during routine barbering services. "Sal, I've been investigating a series of suspicious deaths involving clients of your barbershop, and I've discovered some very concerning patterns that suggest these incidents were deliberately caused rather than accidental," Detective Moretti said with the investigative expertise that had made him successful in solving complex organized crime cases. 11 individuals who received services at your shop have died from apparent poisoning or injuries that are inconsistent with normal barbering accidents, with several of these victims having been involved in law enforcement investigations or business disputes with known organized crime figures immediately before their deaths. The detective's identification of the deliberate poisoning patterns and his recognition of the organized crime connections confirmed Salvatore's worst fears that his murder-for-hire activities had been analyzed and connected to his legitimate barbering business and his involvement with criminal organizations. Salvatore's response was swift and desperate, as he realized that eliminating Detective Moretti was essential for protecting his criminal operation and preventing exposure of his systematic murder-for-hire activities. "Detective Moretti, I think there may be some misunderstanding about the inherent risks of traditional barbering and the unfortunate coincidences that can affect clients who live dangerous lifestyles," Salvatore said, while discreetly reaching for a straight razor that he had modified with a hidden reservoir containing concentrated tetrodotoxin that could be released during a shaving motion. Perhaps we could discuss these concerns in my private shaving room, where I can demonstrate the traditional techniques that might help explain these tragic accidents. Many of my clients are involved in stressful businesses that can affect their health in unexpected ways. Detective Moretti agreed to examine Salvatore's traditional barbering techniques, not realizing that the barber was leading him into a soundproof room where previous murders had been committed and where Salvatore planned to poison him using his modified razor that would deliver the tetrodotoxin through a deliberate cut during a demonstration shave. Salvatore's plan involved convincing Detective Moretti to allow a demonstration shave while explaining traditional barbering methods, then using his modified razor to create a small cut that would deliver the tetrodotoxin directly into the detective's bloodstream, causing rapid paralysis and death that would appear to be a tragic accident during the investigation. But Salvatore's carefully planned murder of the detective was about to be prevented by the unexpected arrival of FBI agents who had been investigating organized crime murder-for-hire operations and had identified connections to his barbershop. Special Agent Michael Torres of the FBI's Organized Crime Division had been conducting a comprehensive investigation into professional killing operations run by Chicago's organized crime families who used legitimate businesses as fronts for systematic murder and intimidation activities. Agent Torres specialized in investigating organized crime elimination operations and had developed expertise in tracking professional killers who used their legitimate employment to access victims and criminal opportunities. The federal investigation had been initiated by reports from multiple law enforcement agencies who had noticed patterns of suspicious deaths involving individuals who were cooperating with organized crime investigations or who were involved in business disputes with known criminal organizations. The investigation had focused on Salvatore's barbershop after discovering that multiple victims had received services there immediately before their deaths. Agent Torres had been conducting surveillance of Salvatore's operations and had documented evidence of his connections to organized crime figures, his systematic murder-for-hire activities, and his use of barbering expertise to eliminate targeted victims while providing cover for organized crime operations. "Salvatore Rossi, I'm Special Agent Torres with the FBI," he announced as he entered the private shaving room where Salvatore was preparing to poison Detective Moretti. "I have federal warrants for your arrest on charges of conspiracy to commit murder for hire, multiple counts of first-degree murder, and participation in organized criminal enterprise activities related to your systematic elimination of targets designated by organized crime organizations." Salvatore's reaction to the federal agent's intervention was a combination of absolute terror and desperate attempts to maintain his neighborhood barber persona, as he realized that law enforcement agencies at multiple levels had been investigating his criminal activities and had connected his barbershop to systematic organized crime murder operations. His carefully maintained reputation as a trusted community barber had failed to protect him from comprehensive investigation by agencies with expertise in organized crime activities. Special Agent Torres, there must be some serious misunderstanding about legitimate barbering services and the unfortunate reality that traditional shaving can sometimes result in accidents, Salvatore said frantically, while abandoning his plan to poison Detective Moretti and attempting to preserve some semblance of professional dignity, despite the overwhelming evidence against his criminal activities. "I am a licensed barber with 28 years of experience providing traditional grooming services to Chicago's Italian-American community. I would never harm any of my clients or participate in any criminal activities that could endanger the people who trust me with their personal care." Detective Moretti looked absolutely stunned as he realized how close he had come to being murdered by the barber he had been investigating for organized crime connections. His criminal investigation had not only exposed Salvatore's systematic murder-for-hire operation, but it also prevented his own death at the hands of a killer who had been using traditional barbering as cover for systematic elimination of organized crime targets. The comprehensive investigation that followed Salvatore's arrest revealed the full scope of his criminal enterprise and the sophisticated methods he had developed to exploit barbering expertise for systematic murder-for-hire operations. Forensic analysis of Salvatore's barbershop revealed extensive evidence of his murder operations, including modified barbering tools designed to deliver poisons, stockpiles of toxic substances disguised as grooming products, and detailed records documenting payments from organized crime figures for successful elimination of targeted victims. His personal belongings included contaminated shaving supplies, modified razors with hidden poison reservoirs, and detailed profiles of clients who had been marked for death by criminal organizations. The investigation also uncovered Salvatore's extensive connections to Chicago's organized crime hierarchy, including detailed records of money laundering operations that had been conducted through his barbershop and evidence of his participation in systematic intimidation and elimination campaigns designed to protect criminal operations from law enforcement investigation. Most disturbing was the discovery of Salvatore's training materials for other service professionals who were being recruited into murder-for-hire operations, including instructional documents about creating undetectable poisoning methods and plans for expanding the criminal network to other cities with significant organized crime presence. Salvatore Rossi was ultimately convicted of 11 counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit organized criminal enterprise activities, money laundering, and numerous other charges related to his systematic participation in organized crime, murder-for-hire operations. The conviction exposed the extensive infiltration of Chicago's legitimate business community by organized crime groups and prompted immediate reforms in business licensing, organized crime investigation, and protection programs for business owners who might be coerced into criminal participation. Several other neighborhood businesses and service providers were investigated for similar criminal activities, resulting in enhanced oversight of businesses in areas with significant organized crime presence and new requirements for reporting suspicious activities that made it more difficult for criminal organizations to exploit legitimate businesses for murder and intimidation operations. Detective Moretti and Special Agent Torres received recognition for their collaborative investigation and became specialists in investigating organized crime exploitation of legitimate businesses, developing new techniques for identifying murder-for-hire operations and protecting business owners from criminal coercion. Vincent Torino and other surviving clients required extensive security consultations and protection services to overcome the trauma of learning that their trusted barber had been systematically murdering clients designated for elimination by organized crime figures. The service industry implemented comprehensive new safety protocols designed to protect clients from exploitation by business owners with criminal connections. The case prompted comprehensive changes in business regulation in organized crime-affected areas, including enhanced background screening for service providers, mandatory reporting of suspicious deaths or accidents involving clients, improved coordination between business licensing agencies and law enforcement, and new protection programs for business owners facing criminal coercion. Salvatore's conviction also led to increased awareness among consumers about the importance of supporting legitimate businesses while recognizing signs of potential organized crime influence in neighborhood service providers who might be exploiting their client relationships for criminal purposes. The barbering and broader service industries implemented revolutionary new safety measures, including enhanced screening procedures for service providers, comprehensive client protection programs, mandatory reporting of suspicious business activities, and improved training for recognizing signs of organized crime involvement in legitimate business operations. 5 years after Salvatore's conviction and life imprisonment, Chicago's Italian-American community continued to heal from the trauma of learning that one of their most trusted neighborhood institutions had been corrupted by organized crime and used for systematic murder. The barber who had promised to provide traditional grooming services and maintain neighborhood traditions had instead used his barbering expertise and position of trust to commit systematic murder for hire against the very clients who had trusted him with their personal care and their lives. However, his crimes had been thoroughly exposed and his victims had found justice through the dedication of investigators who refused to accept suspicious barbershop deaths as mere accidents. Salvatore Rossi's razor's edge had cut his final victim, his own freedom, as he faced life imprisonment without possibility of parole, proving that even neighborhood institutions who attempted to exploit their community trust for organized crime could be identified, investigated, and brought to justice when dedicated law enforcement agencies worked together to protect innocent people from criminal exploitation. The barber's razor's edge had become his final cut to justice, serving as a permanent reminder that community trust must never be violated for criminal gain, and that those who would use their neighborhood positions to harm the very people who supported them will ultimately face the full consequences of their betrayal of community faith and human decency. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.